Here's what progress is actually going to be looking like. Here's why we're not looking for that scale to go down 0.2 every single day, because in the short term, weight loss is just not linear. In the long term, it looks super linear, but there's roller coasters on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis that we don't know until we look back and see that. It's not that book where you read it from page 1, you get to 300 and you're done. It's, okay, jump to page 54, go back to page 17, and you kind of find your end at a time that you don't expect. Sometimes you just have to jump off the cliff and develop your wings on the way down, which is exactly what we're doing here at Stronger You. Because you are jumping off that cliff. You don't have these skills developed yet. And on the way down is really the experience. You grow those wings, and as a result, you don't hit the bottom. You start flying, man.
Welcome to Stronger You Radio with Mike Dola. Join Mike and friends as they discuss issues to keep you healthy, fit, and on track to create a stronger you. Let's listen in now.
What's up, Stronger You fam? Welcome back to another edition of Stronger You Radio. This week, I've got a very special guest coming on board. He's a longtime listener, first-time caller. We have our very own Jack Purdom coming on board. He is officially the Rockstar rookie. For those of you who have been paying attention to the Stronger You universe, you know that a couple of weeks ago, we all descended upon Orlando, Florida. Almost every single member of the Stronger You staff got together to go to Disney World. That's really the main point of that whole trip. I guess we also did some learning, and we handed out awards at the awards banquet. And here we have our reigning Rockstar rookie / rookie of the year, Mr. Jack Purdom. Jack, welcome on the show, my man. Thanks for having me, Tanner. It's great to talk to you as always, but great to talk to you in front of the Stronger universe as well. Also, like I'm just not thinking of it as I'm saying it, but I think I'm using too much Texan and saying your last name. It's actually Purdom, isn't it? Yeah, I wasn't going to correct you because that's just that's the South in you, but it is Purdom. Yeah, all right. So Jack Purdom for all of you listening at home. Jack, man. So obviously, we just got done with Orlando not too long ago. You walked away both having won an award and sitting on a coach panel, educating all of us about how you really kicked so much ass over the past year. Can you kind of tell me, like, when did you come on with Stronger You? And I just kind of love to hear a little bit about, like, what has that experience been like for you? Because I know this wasn't your first jump into the coaching world by any means. It's been an interesting ride. I've been on since about February now, so almost a full year, coming up early next year. And it's crazy because I started out as, personal trainer in super low-level bargain basement gyms, as well as managing corporate fitness centers. And I did both of those for about 4 years. And I thought that was kind of my career path and where it would go. Never had any ideation of working for myself or anything like that. But when the corporate fitness side of things became too much like a corporate job, it became apparent that was the move. So I went out not knowing what I was doing and started my own personal training company, and did that for a few years. Still do that a little bit. An homage of an incredible sci-fi movie. So funny story about that is I actually had no concept of that movie when I named the company. So it's kind of nuts that I had to find out from one of my members that Fifth Element was actually a sci-fi movie that I had unfortunately not seen at that point. Oh my God, are you kidding me? No, dude, but I since have. Don't worry, it's great. I love Bruce Willis, and it's an awesome movie. But yeah, I still do that. Been doing that for about 3 years. And at that point, I thought I'd never again work for someone else. So, just having talked to you and Mike and a lot of the great coaches and people who work with Stronger You, I decided to jump in as a client because as a coach, sometimes you need that level of accountability because you're not always the best coach for yourself. So I worked with a Stronger You coach for a little bit of time. And then Mike kind of said, hey, there's an opportunity here. And without even thinking about it, having seen the community for a few months, jumped right in because there truly is no place like this. No, there's really not. And I can comfortably say now that, I try not to give Nick or Robbie very much credit at all. I actively work to bring them both down any opportunity that I can. But before you even came on board as a client, the three of us were in Mike's ear like crazy about because we knew we were hiring a lot and we knew we needed more people. And we were like, dude, this is the guy. this is the guy you need. I don't know why you're being stubborn and not listening to us. And I think he held out for like a week and a half, 2 weeks, just to not give us that satisfaction. And then finally he wised up and reached out to you, and we have clearly been better since.
No, yeah, I appreciate it. I had a lot of good people in my corner, just kind of having met a lot of you all beforehand. And the interview itself with Mike was kind of funny because it was the shortest interview by far I've ever been on in my entire life. And, I had just met Jess on that call, and Mike was there, obviously, who I knew. But I think it was one question from Jess, and then Mike asked. She went to Mike and was like, what do you got? He's like, I don't know. You're hired, dude. I don't know what else you want me to say. So it's the most Stronger You interview ever.
So for those of you listening at home who might one day want a coaching job with Stronger You, please know that our interview process has been streamlined. We like to think that we've improved that hiring process a little bit. I mean, I can certainly tell you, man, my interview was with Mike and Alessi in Bryant Park on a late October day so Bryant Park in New York City, and it was like 40 degrees outside, and I was in like a light jacket, and we sat in the park and talked for 3 hours. And by the end of it, I was like, I don't even care if I get a job. Can you just get me inside? Like I am freezing right now. So funny to hear how things change.
No, that's shrewd on their part, man. They were freezing you out. They were testing your mental fortitude a little bit.
They were seeing what I was made of. Obviously, we know you're not new to coaching since you came on board. Has your idea of what coaching is, or has anything about your own personal style with coaching, has that changed since you've come on board?
Oh, absolutely. There's just so many good coaches here who have all the experience in the world. I think Jeb said it at Orlando that you could crowdsource a problem, and the answer's in this room with all the coaches there. Yeah. So there's so much talent and experience there that I have definitely taken leaps and bounds of growth since becoming a Stronger You coach, just because of who's in the room with me, getting the chance to work with a lot of the awesome members, and it's been awesome, really.
What's an example of that growth that you think comes to mind?
Early in my career, I thought it was, okay, so if you work out a little bit, I'm just a personal trainer at that point, you lose weight. Come to find out later on that, nutrition's a big piece of this. So I'll go back to school, get some nutrition background underneath me, and say, okay, well, that's simple. It's calories in, calories out, right? Come to find a little bit later, and this is what I think Stronger You does really well, is that it's lifestyle, it's mindset, it's setting your environment up. It's not simply just, hey, here's a calculator, here's the macros you can hit, because I come from a background of athleticism where kind of here's your plan and you do it. It doesn't always work that way in the real world, especially once you get older. You get family, you get kids, you get a job, and all these stressors kind of play into, hey, there's more than just hitting numbers than this.
The numbers are almost just kind of a byproduct of everything else that happens.
Totally.
That's one of those things that you can't actually know until you experience it. Like you can show up with this idea that like, all right, cool, I've got these numbers that this coach wants me to hit. I'm going to zero them out, and the weight's going to fall off, and 12 weeks will be done, and I'll deuce out, and I'll see you later. And how often does it actually work like that?
Almost never.
You've been around since February. Can you think of one instance where it has worked like that yet?
There's the rare unicorn member every now and then that like I've been working with for some ungodly amount of time, where we haven't changed their numbers one time and they've just steadily been losing like 1 pound to 2 pounds every week. And it's just like, oh, you're killing it. Just keep doing it. I don't want to interfere here. It's kind of like working with a great pro athlete. Like, just, I'm not going to screw anything up here. Keep doing what you're doing.
If I get into this, I'm gonna break it. So right. Like, you just do your thing. But that's like maybe 5% of cases, right?
Oh, not even. Yeah. The majority of them, I could give the best numbers based on experience and what the science tells us, and they could zero them out perfectly and the weight doesn't change. And then that's where the coaching game really begins. And you kind of test to see how willing they are to, deal with adversity and have these skills that are not just how well can I plan my food?
So when someone is first coming on board and you're first working with somebody, like, how are you working to try and set those expectations that work so that people understand, like, hey, this is not just the numbers. This is so much more.
It's funny. I actually had a phone call with a member I was just onboarding last night, and she was giving her kind of recapping her past history with what did work, what were the obstacles that she faced in previous weight loss attempts. And when she was recounting that, she said that, if she didn't see progress right away, that made her very likely to go off plan and just kind of self-sabotage. So the question becomes, okay, well, what does progress look like to you? What does that actually mean when you say you didn't see progress? And inevitably that comes back to, well, the scale, that's the metric, right? If the scale wasn't moving every single day, I was going to eat based on that. I said, okay, well, here's what progress is actually going to be looking like. Here's what I want to see. Here's why we're not looking for that scale to go down 0.2 every single day, because in the short term, weight loss is just not linear. In the long term, it looks super linear, but there's roller coasters on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis that we don't know until we look back and see that.
It's like your entire idea of what was going to happen and how it was going to work gets turned on its head. Something I talk about with a lot of people is that, like, maybe we actually need to reframe your idea of success so that you understand what you're actually doing right now and first showing up is simply laying groundwork and building a foundation that you can build on, because clearly that was needed before you could see dramatic changes on the scale, which, by the way, are going to come. We know, like, that'll come, right? But that won't come until you get some of the bigger boxes checked and can move on with those. Right?
It's the hardest thing in the world to trust someone, you probably don't really know that has, saying all of these great things that every other marketing campaign or fad diet has told you the same exact things. Basically what makes it different. But you're right that, it's going to happen as a byproduct of these things. And it might just be that it's not that book where you read it from page 1, you get to 300 and you're done. It's more of the choose your own adventure where, it's okay, jump to page 54, go back to page 17, and you kind of find your end at a time that you don't expect.
I really like that way of thinking about it. And I don't know how I've never thought about it that way. Absolutely a choose your own adventure thing. Winnie and I were just talking about this. You make your own rules here, and the rules are malleable. And maybe one of the best realizations any of us can ever come to is that you are always in charge of changing the rules.
Right.
Nobody is going to tell you otherwise. Like, we will be as adaptable as we possibly can in meeting you wherever you're at.
I can't tell you how many times I've had people come to me who, like, you hear a little bit of shame in their voice, and it's, hey, I think I want to switch to like a more keto based style. I'm sorry to do this, but I'm going to have to back out. And I'm like, why? Macros is not a program. We can do anything within those numbers. So let's just keep tracking, which is really the thing that works. Build that awareness and, build that success through whatever means you want.
Macros isn't a religion. Macros are whatever you want them to be, because you can adjust them any number of ways. And all that we're ever asking is that, like, you continually develop the awareness piece of it all.
And that's really the key, is the awareness. It's when someone misses an untracked day, or, they don't track everything fully, they're like, well, what's the big deal? Like, we know I messed up. And it's like, yeah, we know that now. But, it's the tougher part is your mind is a jerk. 4 weeks from now, you're going to go back and look at that month, and you're going to say, well, I hit my numbers, or there's no data here. So, like, I must have done fine. What's the problem? And that's where the awareness through tracking, whether good or bad, comes into play.
We all have this frustrating tendency to look at the past through rose-colored glasses.
100%.
Like, it's not to say that we should look at the past through poop-colored glasses, but the thing is, we don't want either of those to be the reality, right? Like, instead, we want you to be necessarily harsh with how you look back at what you've done. It means, like, taking the uncomfortable step of admitting, oh, damn, I actually did put down a pint of ice cream that night. Yeah,
Well, that's what makes this thing so tough, really, is because you're up against it from both sides. Is that, you've got this psychological aspect of it where your brain is misremembering and thinking that everything was all peachy beforehand, and you also want instant gratification going forward. So you've got two rocks here that you're kind of stuck between that make it very difficult to change.
Winnie and I were actually just talking about this. Like that whole idea of like being radically honest with how you evaluate yourself and how you communicate with your coach and everything, like that might actually be the hardest part of this whole thing. I mean, because it's terrifying. It is utterly terrifying to do at first.
I catch myself doing it all the time when I'm working with a coach, and it's like, no way, that's not going to help me in the long run. Like I should definitely be giving them as much information honestly as possible, even if that makes me, not perfect.
The very act of having to remember and confront it and address it and put it somewhere real, be it a spreadsheet or an email, like that is invaluable in allowing you to process it. Right? Like,
so it's all part of that awareness game. It makes it real when you put it down. If you don't write it down, it's kind of like, I don't know if that happened. I'm not really sure. And enough time goes by where you're just like, no, I was fine during that period of time.
I often think that like our actual jobs are to do nothing more than function as like this wall that people throw everything against, and so that they themselves can start picking out the lessons and the things that really matter. And I think they do that simply through just putting it down.
In essence, what coaching is really, it's finding that balance between not just beating someone over the head with the facts and the negatives and the things that, they do want to change. That's why they're there. It's also, not overlooking those things and finding that balance, like you're saying, just kind of being realistic with it, because most people don't know until they build that awareness. That's why it's the key. They don't know. I can't tell you how many times when I was just starting out as a personal trainer, every client I asked, it was the only question I had on nutrition, and the intro thing was, how's your diet? Super basic, super general. 99% of them, oh, it's good, totally fine. Whereas we know that's not the case, and they're not lying to me. They believe that because they have no concept of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's like the only way they know how to grade themselves, right? It's simply just that, like, oh, darling, you're nowhere near as aware as you need to be.
Right.
And one day you will. One day you will look back at yourself and you will think, what a sweet, innocent little child you were. I had an old job where we used to call like that point of awareness as like, oh, so Santa's not real?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I'm sorry for any Santa believers that are listening. Please ignore that. But it's like saying, "Oh, I get it now."
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this is slightly uncomfortable, but boy, it was apparently needed.
Yeah, and that's where the work comes in, though. You can't, like you said, know that until you have that experience, and having to go through those rough times and figure out what's actually going on makes that possible. So it's tough, but it's like anything. The work gets you what you want.
And more than that, the work is the thing you can control.
Right.
And it's the only thing that you can control.
Although we are trying to control the scale, most people's goal is scale related, number related. We're not actually controlling it. When we say control those things you can control, the scale is not one of those things.
No.
It is indirectly because of what you are controlling: intake, how much food you're eating, what you're tracking, the rest of the lifestyle things that go into it. But you're not actively saying, okay, drop my weight 0.4 pounds today.
Let's say that the force of gravity was now increased by a magnitude of 1/20th, right? Like, I have no idea. I'm sure that would wreak havoc across the material world. I'm sure there would be a lot of things that go wrong because of that. But one of the things that will also happen is you would, without even knowing it, all of a sudden gravity now accounts for more, and you would step on the scale the next day, and all of a sudden the number is higher, no matter if you actually ate nothing yesterday. And what do you do about that?
That is a horrifying thought that I've never considered. Yeah. Because if every person in the world woke up 1/20th heavier tomorrow, there would be mass freakouts. And the stronger you would be fine. We would be totally cool because we know what we're using the scale for. Everyone else would be losing their minds.
They would be. There would be scales that litter the streets of Chicago, New York, and LA, right? From people who've thrown them out the window. This damn scale, it must be broken.
Yo, you need to go to Stephen King with that, man. That's a legit horror novel plot there.
All right, yeah, you might be right. You might be right. I'm sure for like book 75 or whatever number it is, that would be a good one. Is there any are there any commonalities that you're starting to see people ask about, or things that people are stressing about, or anything like that you'd kind of like to address?
It's really interesting because this is my first holiday season as a Stronger You coach. So, where I have much more volume of members who I'm working with at the same time. I've been through it as a client. I've obviously been through it as a coach on a smaller scale before, but there are definitely trends. People who are doing well, losing weight, they're getting concerned, and you can hear it in the tone of their emails and in what they're writing in their wins and their notes for the days and the check-ins. And it's kind of I've been losing now for 24 weeks in a row. Like, the holidays are coming up. I know what that usually means. I haven't practiced that. How do we get through this? And I think, honestly, it's a great time, obviously, in a case dependent for sure, but to practice maintenance, to bring those numbers up slightly rather than have, a week's worth or a couple days worth of absolute blowout days where you untrack. Because these are going to happen again, whether it's holiday season next year, whether it's your birthday, or there's something that comes up every week. We probably have a couple opportunities per month. But if you don't know how to control them now, you're never going to learn if you don't take that chance.
These types of moments present nothing more to us than a chance to learn. And whenever we can continually view them through that lens, I think not only does the pressure disappear, but I think that we allow ourselves to practice more forgiveness and compassion for ourselves. It's not being in the weeds that matters. It's the 30,000-foot view of this whole process that we take.
You're spot on there. It's not so much like, oh, this is a bad or a negative thing I should be looking forward to. It's pulling back and seeing that these are really learning opportunities. The last check-in I sent off before hopping on with you was a woman who wanted to was on the fence about canceling her family's upcoming Thanksgiving party because she didn't want to be in that environment, because she knew what it had meant in the past, and she was very concerned about doing it. And I can't make a decision for anyone, but I strongly advised against that. And, here are the reasons for that. This is, whether you screw up, great. Like, screw ups happen. Mistakes are going to happen. No one's gone through a session and been perfect. It's what you do with those mistakes that really determines your future and your success. If you look at those and get frustrated and downtrodden and say, hey, man, this doesn't work, it's over. But if you can look at that, say, what could I have done differently? What went wrong, and how am I going to improve on this in the future? You're set up well for success.
Or to even think about, like, all right, cool. You went off the rails. You set a PR, and we are so pumped for you, I guess. But how does that actually compare to what you did last year when you didn't have these skills? How does that compare to how you felt 2 years ago when you were so lost you didn't know where to turn? Because while it might seem like you really screwed up because of what you've done over the past 6 months, when we think about the past 3 years, how drastically different are you behaving on a daily basis right now?
That's such a great point, because it is about progress over perfection, right? We hear that all the time. And you probably are comparing apples to oranges if you're going to compare a Thanksgiving dinner to your average Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So it's very important to have that mindset to not only how am I doing now, but how am I doing now compared to something similar in the past?
Right. So listen, man, I want to wind it down a little differently with you than I do most people, most coaches.
Bring it on.
The show. And I want to do that because of what is sitting over your left shoulder. So for those sitting at home who don't get to look at Jack's beautiful face, over his left shoulder, I see a beautiful collection of Vonnegut books. So I'm going to put you on the spot, and I did not prep this beforehand. And I'm loving that I'm asking you this off the cuff because your answer has to be off the cuff. Can you give me your favorite Vonnegut book? And can you tell me a Vonnegut quote that stands out to you?
I think I might be able to help you out there. So funny thing about those books, I just love them stylistically.
They're beautiful.
Books are. A I don't view them as like a trophy case. Like, hey, look at what I've read, because I haven't read the last third of those. They're listed in order of when he wrote them, okay. And I haven't gotten into his most recent stuff. But I would say that my favorite Vonnegut is probably Sirens of Titan, which is, if not his first, maybe his second. It's more akin to kind of true science fiction than you get with Vonnegut as he goes along here. But the overarching theme and kind of goal, not to give away the ending of it, is really just to kind of be kind and be nice to people. And that was a big theme that he always talked about as an author and as a person. But my favorite quote that I think is super applicable to Stronger You, so it'll work really well, is sometimes I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's sometimes you just have to jump off the cliff and develop your wings on the way down, which is exactly what we're doing here at Stronger You, because you are jumping off that cliff. You don't have these skills developed yet. And on the way down is really the experience. You grow those wings, and as a result, you don't hit the bottom. You start flying, man.
There's so much beauty in having to figure it out as you go, right? Because we all have this idea that we'll figure it out and then start. And I think that the more we can realize that if we can flip that on its head and just start and then figure it out, the better we are at almost anything that we attempt.
It's getting into that analysis paralysis. If you try and wait for the perfect moment or the new year or Monday, it's just about starting. It's about messing up. It's about getting into the weeds and getting dirty and figuring out how to do things better.
I love that. And I love that those are sitting up there. I mean, my favorite book of his is Galapagos, which is like this weird sci-fi novel. Yeah, it's like there's this it's set like 1 million years AD, and the world has taken this weird turn, and there's this new group of people that are going to be like the progenitors of the human race, and it's like they get a chance to start fresh and look at everything that went wrong beforehand, and to think about where would we like to change this? Like, how would we, so that it can be better in the future.
That's what good authors, and especially good science fiction authors, I fully believe, what makes them great is that they're not only right in the moment and are super prophetic, they're super prophetic that decades later, even after they're long dead and gone, their ideas are spot on, and they're even more true, honestly, than when they were written.
Yeah, and not to tie it back to work because this is a work show or anything, but I think that's actually true with great coaching. Like, great coaching is providing counsel that is applicable now and applicable at almost any point that you might drop into in the future.
A great coach and a great client, who puts in the work, sets yourself up not just for success in the moment, but my favorite messages are the ones I get from people who I haven't heard from in 2 months. I thought they kind of went on their own, and who knows? And they, out of the blue, it's just like, hey, just wanted to drop you a note. I've maintained, or I've continued losing weight since I'm doing the exact same things we did, and I'm just mentally stronger and I have better skills.
Yeah, it's like, let's throw you a party. That's awesome. That's all I ever want. Right. Well, listen, Jack, I appreciate you coming on, man. For anybody that's listening at home that wants to follow you or find you online, where can they do so?
I'm all over the Stronger You Facebook group, hopefully at times. I'll get back in there more. Instagram at Trainer Jax, and that's really about it.
Cool. Well, guys, seriously, go give the man a follow. Pop into the group. Keep your eyes peeled because he's there and he's always answering questions, posting, providing value for all of you that are in the community. Plus, he's the Rockstar rookie. He's the rookie of the year. You got to pay attention to the dude. There are big things on the horizon. Jack, man, seriously, this was great. Thank you for coming on here.
No, I appreciate you having me on, and it was great to talk.
Cool. Well, listen, Stronger You fan, keep your ears peeled for next week. We'll have a brand new episode for you. Until that time, plan your day and stick to it.
Stronger You Radio is a broadcast wellness production powered by StrongerUFit.com. Content copyright Stronger You. Executive producer Frank Sardella. Thanks for listening to Stronger You Radio. For more information on the podcast, visit StrongerUPodcast.com.
The award was actually Rockstar Rookie, right? Not Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, I think that's what they called it.
I hate that. All right. So